They burnt the American flags in the parking lot. Now, 18 U.S.C. 700 says that's a crime subject to 1 year imprisonment to burn an American flag. But we never enforce that. Why? Food costs are 50% higher than when I opened 4 years ago. There's 4 meat packers that cut all of the beef in America. After the Rona, their net income only went up 400%. This was the first war the American Revolution fought to depose one king with the goal not to just impose a new king that I like better. This is the most racist country. This is the most xenophobic country. Is ignorant. That work is ignorant. They are misunderstanding reality, and they are harming our future.
You're listening to the Life in Action podcast, Faith, Finance, and Family. Here are your hosts, Mike and Philip.
Hey, welcome back to Life in Action. I am Mike.
Hey, this is Philip Baker.
And we have another amazing guest.
Yeah, we do.
In the game room today.
Cool. I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. So, Mr. Paul Pettefer is in the house today, sitting at the poker table. And let me tell you a little bit about this guy, Philip.
He makes ribs.
He makes amazing
barbecue. I mean, what else do you need to know? I mean, the man has a barbecue restaurant. He's my new best friend.
Yeah.
So
we went and ate there today.
We ate there today. It was good.
We're going to talk. We're going to talk all about that. But Paul Pettefer is a multipreneur from Lake Charles, Louisiana. He loves Jesus the most.
Yeah,
he has a beautiful wife. He has 4 daughters. He owns different businesses, all of which he uses to influence people and talk about Jesus. One of them is Paul's Ribshack, paulsribshack.com.
Ate there today. Awesome.
Yep. And he's called the Bishop of Barbecue over there. Yeah. And he also owns some washaterias. But we're also going to talk about his passion, freedomisbetter.com. And just some of those things. So, Paul, welcome to the show, man.
Welcome to Life in Action.
With you guys today, man. Faith, family, and finances. Yes. Rock on with that.
Hey, that's where it's at. That's where people are.
Yep, that's our bread and butter right there.
I love it.
Man, there's so many different avenues we could go with you, I know. But let's start off and talk about your restaurant. So how did you get into that business?
We went to, I think, Logan's Roadhouse in 2012 and the twins liked the ribs, and I did college ministry at the time, and there was a guy in my group, and he fancied himself a cook. So one day I had a Saturday without a lot to do, and I texted him about cooking ribs. I cooked 1 rack, and then I found out I was talking to somebody. I'm chatty, always trying to visit with people, and I remember telling a guy that I had room for another rack of ribs. And I made a list on my phone, called it the rib list. And I would just invite people to come over and get a free rack of ribs. And my goal was to share the gospel. But, low and slow, like you don't know if it's going to work out or not.
Yeah.
And so a few hundred people later, it became a thing. I started cooking for these different charity events and ministry gigs. And it was, and then some of my guys in my college group kind of came along and helped me process all these. And we go do some gig. And, from the beginning, a 20-person gig is gigantic. And then all of a sudden, now we can cook for thousands if we want to.
Now, the first time I ever saw you was at downtown at sundown. You had the pit out there, right? And y'all were cooking away, and there was food everywhere. And I was like, man, these guys are like really doing it out here in the middle of the street. They just had this giant pit out there just smoking stuff away.
Yep. Barbecue's fun. It's a great so this is my friend-making adventure. I was a banker before, and I used to joke that, if you want to lose money, open a restaurant. That's the best way.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I opened a friend-making adventure, and because I want to share the gospel with people, but you're low and slow, right? I'm gonna. You ask me who owns the place. If you're in my restaurant, I might say, well, Jesus owns it, but I work for him.
Yeah.
Right. I'm tossing you the ball. If you toss it back, well, then game on.
He's your chief partner.
That's right. But I also want to cook outstanding food. So one of our taglines is the best we know how to make. I'm not saying it's the best. It's just the best I know how to make.
There you go.
Well, if you're in Lake Charles, Louisiana, you definitely got to swing by and check it out. And we'll put all the information in the bio down below.
Yeah,
great atmosphere.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things we do talk about on this show is finances. And I kind of want to delve into that a little bit with you. And one of the things I heard you speak about in a YouTube video one time was about food costs. And I know that in our country right now, like everything's getting so expensive. Like you go to the grocery store, you got like $300 bill and you walk out with 2 bags of groceries, And you being in the restaurant business, I know you feel this. Everybody who owns a business, I own a business, we feel it. The prices are just constantly going up on us. What is that like for you as a business owner? Like people walk into a restaurant and they go, oh, things are so expensive these days and it's cost us so much. Mm-hmm. But nobody ever really gets to hear from the business owner's side. Like, the customers, they think, oh, these guys are just getting rich, raising the prices on us. What's the reality of that for a business owner?
Oh, the reality is you're going to see thousands of independent restaurants close that you didn't expect. It's crushing and absolutely terrible. However much you're imagining the pain, it's worse than that.
Yeah.
In the months after the Rona, the price of brisket nearly doubled. I'm a Texas-style barbecue joint. The demand curve for brisket is 100%, right? I cannot stop selling brisket.
Yeah.
Just close the doors, right?
Yeah.
That's the King of Texas barbecue. So, and then I discovered along this pathway, like, why did it go up? So I'm Captain Optimistic. The glass, it can be a third full, and I'm still optimistic. Right?
Yeah.
It's going to work out. We'll make a way. Improvise, adapt, overcome, the entrepreneur way. And yet I'm in the middle of this kind of, I'm brand new at the restaurant game. I've never worked at the restaurant. I've never thought about a restaurant. And then I open one, and these food costs just go through the roof. My spreadsheets, I'm sure you've made a lot of money on spreadsheets, right? Just see the spreadsheet. Oh, here's how much money I'm going to make. Oh, yeah. Reality is different than that every time.
Yeah, the projections.
And projections and all that. So I started dicing it up, and I looked into, there's 4 meat packers that cut all of the beef in America, almost all of it.
Wow. Just 4?
Just 4. Isn't that surprising? Because they don't invent the cow. There's nothing sophisticated about it. A big refrigerated room, keep it clean, sell it, whatever. 4. Why are there only 4? And I started delving into that. Well, there's 4 because the USDA regulates that, and it's kind of a pain in the neck, and it just sort of incentivizes people to not get in the game. There was one USDA regulated meat cutter in Louisiana, and they just sold, and now they don't do it anymore. Why is that? Well, it's because of this extra pressure. So when in doubt, never let a good crisis go to waste, said Rahm Emanuel. So these 4 meat packers after the Rona, the one that is beef-centric and that has publicly traded, so you can see their financials, 2 quarters after the Rona, their net income only went up 400%. Only 400%.
Wow.
While they're complaining, oh my gosh, prices go up because we can't get workers in our cutting rooms, and it's just we're all in this together. We're all struggling together.
Yeah.
And horse hockey is the answer to that.
Yeah.
And so that's the real terrible part about this is now we've got a little bit of regulatory protection making some entities kind of corporate protectorates. I think that's called fascism when government and corporations partner together.
Yeah.
And as a result, profits in corporate America have gone up almost 100% since before the Rona. And mine have gone through the floor.
Yeah.
And I just left my doctor's office, and he's telling me how much stuff costs there. Now, when the doctor's office is complaining about price increases.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So that's really a challenge. So now the meat went up a ton in the beginning. Then they subsided a little bit, and all the groceries caught up. So it's just been a real struggle to figure out how can we sell something that's cheaper for the guest and not have a 65% food cost.
Right. Well, you're talking about the beef side or the meat side, but I know like in your restaurant, I looked over there and, there was the corn michoux, which was incredible. And you got the beans and you got the potato salad. So we understand the meat, but what about the cost of just these, these other things, corn, beans,
They're
potatoes?
all up tremendously.
What is that like? What does that look like?
I mean, it looks like food costs are 50% higher than when I opened 4 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
But my menu price is up about 20%, 25. And
Gotcha.
I've just worked harder at finding cheaper things. Chicken thighs are the cheapest protein there is. They're delicious. And so we're doing more stuff with chicken thighs, so for example. Or how can Jesus said, let nothing be wasted. So how can I make something delicious out of barbecue? You have to cook everything before you open the doors. And that's really hard. What do you do if you don't sell it all? Or people walk in and just are aghast that we're out of something.
Yeah.
I don't microwave it, bro. Ribs take 6 hours.
Yeah.
to cook.
Let me go make some ribs for you, buddy.
Yeah. Sit down, have a minute. But it's just very tough, and I'm fearful for what's going to do to a lot of people. But and I'm sure the Mexican food truck they cook it to serve right there. It's easier. Anyway, it's really a problem.
Right.
Yeah. The last thing we need is another Mexican restaurant on Lake Charles.
Yeah.
Golly.
Hey, I'm from Houston. There's, I think, around 14 Mexican restaurants within 10 minutes of my house.
Yeah.
So they're, but hey, God bless chips and salsa.
Man, I'm down with it. I'm a once a weeker at Casa Manana generally,
Yeah.
so, with my wife.
Some of these places have got to be laundering money, I think. That's just my personal opinion. But
The C-stores, I don't understand.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. So tell us about your website or your ministry. That's what is it called? Freedom is
Better.
Freedom is Better. Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
How did that start? What is that about?
Well, I graduated from McNeese, and one of my friends, dad's friends, was his attorney from New Orleans, and he had kind of this incredible life. We go duck hunt, and he would tell us about he was some kind of semi-special forces in Vietnam, and then he was an attorney in New Orleans, and he got recruited, he said, by some .gov to sell weapons to the this and that Central American country people, and he had these crazy stories, like maybe the Black Cap helicopters were going to come flying and get us in the duck blind, and then one day I graduated from college at McNeese here, and he was telling me we're parroting what my sociology professor said. Now, I'm a son of an entrepreneur, right? It's not like we were a left-wing professor. It's just very business-like group. But I was just parroting whatever the sociology professor told me from McNeese, which is hardly a left-wing bastion school. I mean, it's a school, but it's not a Brown or something like that. And this and that. And he I won't tell exactly. He just said, so I told him that black poverty was because of white racism, because that's what my sociology professor said. And he gave me a few illustrations about how he was trying to build a building in New Orleans, and this is 1988 probably, or 90, and people would come in and tear the copper out of the walls in the middle of the night to scrap the copper, so it would cost him $100 for them to get a nickel. And he said, whatever you want to do, just don't tax me anymore. And my first reality going like, this man's super accomplished. And my sociology professor is so weird that he said when he retires, he's going to commit a crime so he can go back to prison because you get 3 squares a day. That was his big shtick, to get all the kids interested with him. Okay. So I got an accomplished person with a track record and this sort of, I'm not so sure on the accomplishment side. Which one do I care about more? And that kind of got me thinking about life and America and all that.
Well, that's kind of the Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad story. Kind of his story, where he had the professor and he had the entrepreneur. And which one?
Which one
Yeah.
do I really believe has the right scoop? And then I graduated from Baylor grad school. My daddy's business went broke here in Lake Charles, and I didn't know what I was going to do, so Baylor gave me a full ride. I called that a sign from God. I met my wife there, and then I started listening to Rush Limbaugh. And Rush taught me to think like an American, I think. Think like a conservative. And while I was a banker, driving to go see calls and none of that. So that sort of began my impression for love in America. And then you distill that down, and our schools just do such a terrible job of telling us about the American story. There are so few movies about American independence. This was the first war the American Revolution fought to depose one king with the goal not to just impose a new king that I like better. First one in the history of the
I
world.
never thought about that. That's an excellent
right?
point.
And so now we have this self-deprecating everything, right? We are now the soft underbelly of America. Osama bin Laden said, we'll attack them and they'll hate themselves. And that's exactly what happened. Oh my God, we're so worried about Islamophobia because we must have caused it. Well, that's a very, and this is probably not the right topic, but a feminine kind of mindset, sympathy for the other person. And that's a good impulse. It just shouldn't be the only impulse. It should be countermanded with both sides of it. Well, no, they hate me. Osama bin Laden hates America, so I don't want to give him a toehold.
Right.
Otherwise, we should just all, close the door and turn the car on. We'll all just go to sleep and die. Carbon monoxide. That's what this is. And so Freedom is Better is our impulse to be the new beacon of light. I'm not saying America is the only beacon of light, but it was a spark, and it's changed the world. And I love America. I think America is a great place, and I want to tell this freedom story in this generation, but one of many. I'm sure there are plenty, and because it's not being told. We're being told by our indoctrinators to self-loathing and everything's terrible, and I disagree.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, what everything you're saying, my life is, people listen to this podcast, they know I'm an evangelist, and every year I'm in over 50 churches and
Amen.
And been doing it for over 20 years. But let's just ask the question, how many nations of the world could I be doing what I'm doing and being able to support my family by preaching the gospel and traveling throughout churches, doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I mean, America might be the only place in the world that I could do what I do on the level I'm doing it.
Right.
Amen.
Matter of fact, I don't even know if I could do what I do up in the Northeast or in the Northwest. I mean, you know,
Those are mission fields today.
you know, it's
Yeah.
it's what I do for a living is very, you know, it's very American, and it doesn't fit into a lot of nations.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I was listening to a guy at a conference for my laundry business, and he's from South America, and he was talking about how his trucking company was going to have to close because there was just no rule of law. You couldn't protect. He had to bribe this person and that person to get stuff done. And, you know, in America, you get to own your own rights of your labor. And in a feudal lord in the past, he would own the rights to your labor.
That's right.
The feudal lord decided what you could do and not do. And here we've unleashed this unbelievable creativity explosion, productivity explosion, innovation explosion. Why? Because you get to earn the rewards from your beautiful car washes, right?
Yep.
And otherwise, the motivation goes away, and we all become little butt kissers about who can get the, you know, everyone's equal, but not everyone's equal is the same.
Yeah.
And that's not going to work. It doesn't produce anything good. And in America, we have rule of law, so now I can enforce a contract. You can't have capital formation without that. You if you live South America and you try to borrow money, well, you can only enforce your collateral if the women you're sending to the judge are prettier than the women the other guy's sending to the judge. And that's just not going to work. There's no growth from there. And here you have this incredible opportunity, and people who don't live here see it.
Yeah.
That's why they
want to come.
And the people who do live here, who are being indoctrinated falsely by maybe well-meaning, I don't know if the people in universities or even K-12 who, I don't know if they mean well or not. But I do know that the result of that work, which is that America is evil, this is the most racist country, this is the most xenophobic country, is ignorant. That work is ignorant. They are misunderstanding reality, and they are harming our future. And we need to just call it as it is and proclaim freedom. Right. It's better.
You know, I think we need to kind of pause for a second and remind people listening that this is the daddy of Hannah Pettefer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yes.
Who we had in a few podcasts back.
Yep.
She came in, incredible young lady, but she is an entrepreneur, and she has her princess parties. Yeah. And you know, she has carved out this niche, this business, this company right here in the Lake Charles region, and is really doing well. She's published a book, and she's just an incredible young lady. And for me, it just, what she's doing matches everything you just said.
Yeah.
She's living the American dream. Can you kind of talk about, you know, just that impact on your daughter and how her brain works and how she sees America?
Yeah, I don't know how to think like her, but I know that they heard me telling stories. I worked for Bank of America, and then I worked for Mid-South Bank, a local bank here. And I feel like my MBA program kind of prepares you for being an employee in a corporate world. And that's fine and all, but it's not nearly as good, right? It's almost like working for government. And I remember... Anyway, so I'm sure they heard me say many times stories about how working for the big entity was a drag. It's discouraging. Creative impulses are retarded. And some of that is necessary, right? Because you can't let loose control to people who, you know, don't have authority. And I understand all that. But, man, it's not as fun. I think it's soul-sucking. And so I'm sure she heard me tell those stories. Wanted to do something different and... be willing to take a chance when she opened up her little princess company and
learned. Went down to Disney, went to school, learned it, saw it, touched it, felt it, tasted it, and brought it back to Louisiana.
And she's killing it. I mean, she's doing a great job. She's leading others well. She's learning in the process, and I'm so proud of her. I hope all the girls have similarly thought through. Some of them worked for another entity in town, a very good shop, but still they get the kind of bureaucratic stuff going on and maybe a little bit less enchanted by all that. And so I've encouraged them all to do whatever they want. And whatever God's leading them to do is awesome. But if they can, I'm also trying to grow our place where if they, them or their future husbands, if they marry, want to come home, there's a thriving for them to be involved in. So,
Opportunity.
yeah.
You know, in my house, I have 4 kids too.
Awesome.
I got 2 girls, 2 boys. And I preached a lot of the same things about, hey, you know, build your own dream, do your own thing. You know, don't go and build someone else's dream. Do something for yourself. And there comes a point though when they get college age, and like my son, 2 of my kids so far have been like, I'm not going to college. I'm going to go just do whatever, you know. And your part of you is like, oh my God, I hope I didn't make a mistake. I hope I didn't, you know, but they got to make their own decisions. They got to make their own choice, and they got to walk their own way. But as a parent, you know, it's easy to say those things, but then when it's your own kids, it's a little bit like you have a little bit of fear watching them walk away from that opportunity. But again, I have a daughter who went to college, and she went for 4 years and got her degree, and she's not even using it, you know. For her, it was good because she just had the discipline of finishing, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's definitely a different world when you get to be your own boss, your own person.
There's always trade-offs. There's no solutions. Well, there are solutions, but there's trade-offs. There's some good, some bad. I enjoy what I do, but man, some days I wish someone would just tell me what to do a little bit and solve these problems, because there's so many of them, and now I have, 5 different projects I'm working on at a time, and there's trade-offs to that. But I do think that the platform of, one, standing on God's word, being made alive in him, trusting that he loves me more than I love me. And if I want to put my trust in his open hands and let him rule, then I can use my freedom and opportunity to do the best. So I'm the pastor at Laundry World. I'm the bishop of barbecue. I'm the freedom dealer at Freedom is Better. And I want to make sure that I don't end up with a Ephesians 5 where I've lost out. Paul says to make the most of the days because they're evil, and I don't want to miss out on my opportunities to influence for his name and have fuel for the journey, right? You got to make a living. I want to be self-sufficient so I can pay my own way. That's why I bought the laundries so I could pay my own way and do ministry stuff with half my life and pay my own way. Yeah. Turns out I just added 20 hours to my life. I didn't work. I don't know what a 40-hour work life leaves, but I do think that our opportunity is great, and we will be held to account. What did you do with the life I gave you? You got born in America versus in some other land where there's less opportunity, less. Paul writes, whoever is stealing must steal no more, so that he would do something productive with his hands, so that he may have something to share with others in need. And if you don't have something to share with others in need, well, then kind of shame on you. Get to work.
Yeah. Well, this is very consistent with the Life in Action podcast, because over all these weeks, we've had Hannah, we've had Gina Jones, and others that have talked about being a Christian in the marketplace.
Right.
And ministry is more than just someone like me standing in a pulpit in a local church preaching the gospel. Thank God for those ministry gifts, the apostle, prophet, evangelist, teacher. But that's not all ministry is. And there are people that what God's called them to do is just as important as what God's called me to do. And people that are in business like you, in the marketplace, you're salt, you're light, you're lifting up the name of Jesus, you have a testimony, you're out there showing Jesus outside the walls. I know you're in the walls too, but you're outside the walls. And man, that's awesome. And that's one of the reasons we did Life in Action was to promote that side of ministry, because, I think over the decades of church, I think one of the missteps of the church in general has been this whole notion of everything outside the church is secular and everything inside the church is sacred. And we don't believe that at all.
For sure.
It's all sacred.
Yeah. You brought up Ephesians 4, apostle, prophets, evangelists, teachers, shepherds. What other gifts God gave the church to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. So everybody's a minister.
Yes.
And some of them equip. And equippers have to minister too. You can't just equip and then go home and watch everybody else
You're
work.
preaching good.
And I think that being an entrepreneur just means that I'm not now breaking a rule just saying that I get to be appropriate and share the gospel in my place. When I go volunteer at a school, if the kid asks me a question, I get to answer it. I get to give them a few seconds answer.
Yeah.
Not a 4-hour sermon. Why did you guys come here and give us this food? Well, because Jesus loves you, man. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm here to make sure you hear his name and move on. And if he asks me another question, I get to follow up. But otherwise, if I'm at, some oppressive regime, or if I'm at some perverted regime that says that the Constitution makes America a religious free zone, that's incorrect.
Yeah.
And we don't need that either. So we need to be bold and speak that up. And our opportunity as business owners to use our communication to be, salt and light and appropriate. And I think that part of, to him much is given, much is required, means that we may have to be uncomfortably bold in these days. I just put a signboard up at my restaurant that said Trump alive, shooter meeting maker.
Yeah.
And I knew that would, Trump derangement syndrome would mean some people would just probably not go or whatever.
Yeah.
And I wanted to encourage other business owners to not be afraid to have asymmetrical life be the rule.
Yeah.
Meaning it only flows one way. If you're of the oppressed class, you get to speak against others, but everyone else just has to stand there and take it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to work anymore.
Well, being bold, I was preaching up in Maine last month, and it was amazing how many restaurants had the pride flag outside, and then I'm driving through Maine, and I'm seeing Methodist churches and Lutheran churches and Episcopal churches, with the pride flag out on the, the marquee. And so, it's amazing how the world can be bold with their beliefs, but the church, Christians, should shut up,
Sit down.
and, stay hidden. And so, this is the hour to stand.
Yeah, and not in anger or rage
right.
or calling people some awful name, but to say what we think and what's
To be
true.
bold.
Yeah.
Bold and in love, and you can get angry. It says, do not sin in your anger, but it doesn't say never get angry.
Yeah.
Anger gets you moving.
Righteous
When
indignation.
Trump's ear got shot, I could not sit down,
Mhm.
and I was mad.
Yeah.
And mad pushed me to put his name on and I like President Trump a ton, but it's not like I'm a Trump fan. But
Right.
you know what else is not good is the fact that now I'm not a big 6-foot recon Marine. And I bet if I walked through certain neighborhoods wearing a Trump hat or shirt, I'd be accosted.
Mm.
And that's not good,
Yeah.
right? And why is it asymmetrical? And the answer is because we allowed it to. That's why.
Yeah,
And
right.
we need to be fair and bold and appropriate to say, golly whiz, if we live in America, then you should teach the kids in your school to love America.
Yeah.
And that's how this works out. And if you don't feel like doing that, no sweat. You can go open up your own school and see what kind of kids you can get. What parents will give you money to go open your school that says that America is all these bad things that they say. And
But we're going to
don't
stay
agree.
here and take its money. You hate
Yeah,
America,
yeah,
but we're going
yeah.
to stay here.
I
And,
mean, Palestine. They tore down 3 American flags in Union Square in our nation's capital yesterday. Protesters did, and hung Palestinian flags, and they had fights with police officers, and then they burnt the American flags in the parking lot. Now, 18 USC 700 says that's a crime subject to 1 year imprisonment to burn an American flag. But we never enforce that. Why? Because we've forgotten to believe in ourselves. That is an error that will cost you your life. If you hate your own family, guess what? It'll fall apart.
Yeah.
If you love your family, it'll fall. If you hate your faith and you just think of all the ways God's not treated you poorly or has treated you poorly, you're going to walk away from your faith. And I disagree with that. The reason the Bible talks so much about what you think, right? Whether it's good, noble, excellent, praiseworthy. Think about such things is because the world recognizes that, right? I forget if it was Aristotle. Think so. As a man thinks, so he becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And we must know what's true and good and celebrate it and say it.
Mm.
Must. And the business owner class is probably the most bold.
Mm.
But there's risk.
There's a risk.
And so
I think we're getting to a point here in America where as Christians need to start grasping around the concept of going to jail for our faith, because that's something that a lot of people don't even think about. But you need to start getting to the point where you're going, man, am I willing to go to jail for what I believe? And
was.
Yeah, Paul was. But in other countries, they will. They'll for their faith. They don't care. They'll go to jail.
I noticed that there's no giant protests about Boko Haram, which has been 20 years terrorists in Africa.
Right.
Mhm.
Every week, we are giving away a free copy of Philip Baker's book on our Instagram. All you have to do to enter is follow our page. Head over to Lifeinactionpodcast on Instagram, give us a follow, and you are entered. Easy as that. Now, back to the show.
Killed thousands of people.
Yeah.
Now we have a certain, and the answer is, I don't, I think they said Brown University, like 40% of the students identify as some kind of queer something or other.
Mm.
And I'm not mad at those young people.
Right.
It's the leaders who led them have harmed them. And I'm mad at them.
Yeah.
Now, the young people who were screaming and they were tearing down the flags and fighting police and all that's no good.
Yeah.
And they should be held to an account just like everyone else's criminal behavior gets held to account. But it's the people who trained them,
Mm-hmm.
and they trained them poorly. I mean, Marxist thought says oppressor oppressed. And I believe if we start looking at these activities at an oppressor-oppressed point of view, I think we'll get some insights.
Yeah. And it's amazing how all that comes around and goes around. You going back before World War I, there was communist, socialist, Marxist stuff. Go back before World War II, leading up to the years of World War II, all throughout Ireland and Scotland and England, there was people pushing socialism and Marxism, and they were pushing all that. I mean, it's all this stuff comes and it goes, and wherever it has been, it leaves destruction. But every generation thinks that somehow or another, all that destruction is going to be different this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, we don't learn from history.
Well, we can.
We can.
Man, that's right. Freedom is better.
That's right.
Freedom's better. Wow.
Man.
So, they not only did that, they destroyed some monuments and stuff, like Liberty Bells. They put
wrote
graffiti all
them.
over them and
Yep.
stuff. That's crazy. And then Netanyahu comes and nobody greets him. Nobody.
Well, we have the sit-in. They sat in the rotunda and had another criminal activity staging in the rotunda of the Congress. They had a big protest yesterday as well. And I don't. Not everyone enjoys talking about politics. It is something that I'm passionate about, and I want to run for office or something. I don't know what God's hand is next, but I do believe that we can't ignore. There's a Latin phrase, res ipsa loquitur. The facts speak for themselves. And so when someone tells you that down is up and up is down, meaning I'm a girl, I'm a boy, you just get to decide, or all these other just nonsensical things, you have to say that the facts speak for themselves. That's not true. And the people who are telling you it's true are harming you. And I believe that it's an inflection point. There are many of them, but this is one for sure. This year in particular. I mean, just think about all of the harm around the world, all the disruptions, the PSYOP or not, right? We've got the COVID, the George Floyd, the election controversy. We've got Afghanistan withdrawal, and just pick a new thing. Every 3 months there's a new one, and now we got they go to a president's home and have a FBI raid, and now you get assassination attempts. It's very disruptive, and one, it makes us go back to. I love the faith grounding episodes you had about your devotion time, and you saying, was it you saying, I'm not going to pick up my phone until I read the word? Yeah, that's awesome.
That's been a game changer.
Because otherwise, I'm going to try to get power, get internal strength from being right about some opinion, and that's not enough.
Yeah.
It's being connected to being connected to the Lord.
Yeah.
And now I have something to bring with me.
Yeah.
And I think that our time of being for my case, a Christian person who happens to have a platform in business to share love and to share truth. Louis Giglio says, hold on to the standard and reach out in love. And I think that's like a plumb line. So you hold on to it and you reach out.
Reach out. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And that's what that does, that morning time, is it grounds the day. So that way you start your day off right. And that
I have a counter Bible at the house, so I leave it out, and whoever flips into it. And
Oh yeah.
And I encourage all the young people around, have a Bible open on your counter and let everyone see that about your life, because they'll ask you. And so sometimes we leave a journal there. The different kids will write notes in it.
Oh, that's cool.
So we have the election coming up in November. As if you were standing in front of 1,000 18-year-olds and they had never voted before, what would you tell them that what's at stake in this election? What would you say to, because we have a lot of young people listening, and of course the podcast world now has become the world of young people. They listen for hours. We probably have one of the shorter
one.
podcasts.
Yeah, people tell us, I wish yours was longer. And we're like,
Joe Rogan's going 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got one, maybe $2. No, I think one that's voting for her first time this year.
Yeah.
So
So what's at stake? How would you communicate that?
Well, the first words in the Constitution are "we the people." And if you think about the first war fought to depose one king, not to impose a preferred
I've
king.
never thought about that.
And
I'm really glad
this
you brought
new
that up.
experiment in freedom that the people, you read the Declaration. I have it on my shirt today, right?
Yeah.
And read the Constitution. It takes about 10 minutes to read the Constitution. And you just think through that the people right here voluntarily give authority to the government to protect the God-given rights of the people. And if you go through that exercise of reading the Declaration and Constitution and compare that to what we hear today, when we were kids, I don't remember anyone thinking about a problem and they would say, what's the regulation for that? Isn't there a regulation for that? This is a new phenomenon. This very bureaucratic, regulatory nanny state is a new phenomenon. I mean, we just had a marketplace solution for that, or a neighborhood solution for that, not I must get a federal bureaucrat to come spend thousands of dollars to do nothing and then to give me some edict at the end of the day.
yeah.
So this we the people, where we are vested with the rights, the responsibility to elect leaders to represent our interests. And our interests are to promote our life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not to promote my free check from someone else's money. And the reason that's good is because when you're young and strong and vigorous and you have these visions, you don't even know what all you want, but you want something, you get that opportunity if you're free. But if you're beholden to some bureaucrat who you must get a permission slip from to braid hair, you have to get a permission slip from the city and state to braid hair.
Yeah.
Right? Then your opportunities become much less. And just think through what we have in China. They have biometric everything. In fact, you must carry your cell phone in China because they want to track where you go. And if your social credit scoring right, they just cut off your money. And it's like it's the wrong kind of dopamine snaps, right? That they'll ping you. Oh, that hurt.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a pursuer of your dreams, then you need to know that freedom is the vehicle that you can do that from.
Yeah.
And if you want oxygen in the room, you cannot give a big chunk of it to someone who doesn't produce. Production comes when you and I do something that someone else wants. Everything else is a transfer payment from someone else who produced.
Yeah.
So government doesn't produce anything. It receives taxation from those who did produce, and then it does its good thing. Now, if it has a stable currency, rule of law, a limited court system when needed, in relationships with other nations, that's great. If it starts telling me what kind of light bulb I can have, what kind of gas I have to burn, and all these things. And those new details don't even come from Congress. They come from the bureaucratic state. They just promulgate regulations. In fact, every day they promulgate about 800 pages of new rules that didn't come from Congress. It's called the Federal Register. You can go download it today. And all of those suck up the oxygen in the room. Just think about if you had to start your day reading all the regulations about your business every day. You have to hire lobbyists. You don't even know you do. Your trade association has lobbyists who read all those regulations to see, oh my gosh, they're about to ruin things or make a big trouble. And all that takes away from your freedom. And you want more freedom. You want the kind of freedom that's built in with character. And that's why family, right? That's one of your core things. Fam trains you on all these things, character and growth and opportunity, delayed gratification, community vision, like a whole family succeeds, we all succeed.
Yeah.
If I succeed and everyone else fails, I fail. My people who are my connected group, that kind of freedom with character, freedom with capacity, because that's what builds you too. When dad teaches you how to do something or mom teaches you how to cook, that's capacity. I don't need to get a government permission slip nor a government food voucher if I can grow my own food and cook it. So if you want to see your visions come to pass, you want more freedom, and you need to think about that, not just who's going to give me more stuff or who somebody who is in a transfer payment situation is telling me, did they produce something? I don't want to elect one more person who hasn't proven themselves through achievement.
Yeah.
If you haven't achieved anything, you might be a great fella, and I might agree with all your opinions, but you're not proven yet.
Yeah.
Go prove yourself with achievement. And I think that freedom's on the ballot.
And they never know who
not
represents
hysteria.
that freedom and who the other person is who's lying about that.
Yeah. I mean, propaganda is a useful tool. And now we have mob rules. We have mobs that enforce the propaganda.
Yeah.
And that's very scary. And that Constitution in my back pocket has the First Amendment: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment or religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or prohibiting the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition their government for redress of grievances. That is unique among things. Justin Trudeau told everybody after the coronavirus that those truckers had unapproved opinions. Unapproved opinions. That's so un-American.
Yeah, it
Don't
is.
tell me I have an unapproved opinion.
Yeah.
Now they say that words are violence. No, sir, that's propaganda. And that Second Amendment says that well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. When I read the Gulag Archipelago from Alexander Solzhenitsyn, which documented the Soviet political prison system, when I noticed that when he documented stories about people being arrested to go to the Gulag, they all just cried and wept and watched their loved ones being dragged away. There was no gunfights with the political police
Yeah.
because they're all disarmed.
Yeah.
So if you want to give ultimate control to government, that's bad.
Yeah. And that's why Hitler was able to go across Europe so easily, because nobody had weapons.
They're all, they're all, even Israel's rethinking that.
Yeah.
The whole October 7th attacks were, the people who lived on the border of Gaza were the Gaza sympathizers. They were pro-Gaza, and Hamas came and butchered them. And they didn't even have guns because Israel doesn't allow you to have guns. They have an armory. You have to go get the guns from the armory, and everyone's in the IDF, or you have to go through, young men anyway. But they didn't have guns. They're pro-Gaza, and the Gazans went and killed them all and butchered them. And because that self-loathing, if you hate yourself, you will collapse. And hating your own country, you'll collapse. I love America. I want freedom.
Yeah.
And then we should know who controls the mobs.
Yeah.
Whoever controls the mobs is the propaganda.
There's
and whoever
mobs.
the propaganda is trying to take away your freedom.
That's right. Go to the scripture. Paul went to these cities. Mobs were, when he burnt the scrolls for the witch girl, and the mob came, and mobs are not good. Mobs. In fact, I read that in my counter Bible this morning about, I forget which chapter in Acts. And now we have mobs here, and mobs are utilized because they're effective.
Yeah.
But they don't make you more free.
No.
They make you intimidated and scared. And I don't want to be scared. And if you have great families who produce people who are productive and loving, then you don't need mobs.
Yeah.
Right? We have productivity, and we get to flourish and shine and share that all over the world. And we've sent out America's most generous country in the world. We sent out more missionaries than anyone else in the world because we're the most productive in the world.
Yeah.
At least we were.
I was in Rome this December, and I saw the pro-Palestinian mobs in the streets. And then I was in Washington for Stop the Steal after the election, and I saw the Antifa mobs walking the streets and intimidating people, and so it was stupid. And then I saw the Proud Boys and the Antifa clash in the street, those two mobs, and it was quite a sight.
You could stop all that. You could have the 4K drones flying over, get everyone's facial recognition. In Louisiana, it's actually illegal to wear a mask except for Mardi Gras events.
Really?
So everyone should be unmasked.
Yeah.
And I wrote in my Constitution right here, it says a few laws I would do. I would say if you're wearing a mask, you can't carry a firearm.
Yeah, that's a good law.
And if you show up at a protest and you're dressed in riot gear, you're a rioter.
Yeah.
And you'll be treated as a rioter. What do rioters do? Rioters don't get to carry their stuff and fight police. If you're in riot gear, then you're a rioter. And rioters, that doesn't mean you get to get killed, but you get to be manhandled and not let to go intimidate all the citizens.
Yeah.
And there's always a tension where you want to just let things subside. At home, we don't address everything our children do that's wrong. We, give them grace, let it go away. They'll blow off steam.
Yeah.
And, children don't know that. They just know that they can blow up and yell and scream and no one burns the house down because why? The parents put the fire out.
Yeah.
Victor Davis Hanson talks about that. And now the left is used to being able to throw a protest and have a thing and someone else keeps paying the bill.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that little reality discipline might let that stop. And we can't let the mob intimidate us. And I'm grateful for living in a city where I'm afraid to go to big blue cities, to tell you the truth, especially if I say things like this on podcasts and become a thing. I don't want to. In the Soviet Union, they made everything illegal with the regulations so that the political prosecutor could just prosecute anyone. They just walk in, you're breaking some law. So selective prosecution or asymmetrical warfare it is against one's own citizens. That's why you don't want a regulatory state that has, in fact, the American Enterprise Institute calls it 10,000 commandments. But the only problem is it's now hundreds of thousands of commandments that they have.
Arrest you first, we'll figure out the crime later.
Yeah. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That's anti-American. It's actually against the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is an incredible document, and we must preserve them.
One of the greatest crimes of our century must be Julius Assange up there. Got released, but he was in prison for nobody even knows what he was in prison.
Yeah, I mean we definitely. I was for the Patriot Act, right? I believe the best.
Yeah.
Surely, I don't want Islamists who hate us to have infiltrate and use our systems to hurt us. And surely the feds are good guys, and I think there are many good guys, but clearly, not all of them have the same view. About us holding freedom. We the people, they think that they're better. Expert class. Rule by expert class is no bueno. You do not want that.
Yeah.
They haven't proven themselves by virtuous service to others, nor achievement apart from government power. And those two are required to test your character to know if you're worthy to... that's why I like the Lord of the Rings. When Galadriel, are you all Lord of the Rings fans?
Yeah.
Man, Galadriel says, I passed the test, right?
Yeah.
He held it out for her. Do you want it? And she's, ultimate power. And it's a very alluring thing. And we get convinced. All of us are that same way. We can be convinced. If you're smart, good looking, talented, nice, and driven as a person, you can get a long way without God. And that builds a callous. And all of a sudden you think you don't need him until your soul aches.
Yeah.
And that's the part where freedom comes from God. Otherwise I can have power, but my soul aches. That's Xi Jinping or Vladimir Lenin, right?
Yeah.
That's the soul crushing capacity of the state to pretend it's God.
Yeah.
It's not.
What's that saying? Talent will take you a lot of places, but character will keep you there.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
kind of like what you're saying right there.
Yes. The Habitudes. You know that guy? This great book. What's his name? Teaching leadership principles. Iceberg. What you can see above the water is character. What's below is talent. What's below the waterline of the iceberg is character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, tell us real quick about because we were so impressed with your daughter, and I know that if we sat all four of them down, we'd probably be as equally impressed. As parents, what is y'all's philosophy on raising kids? Like, what do y'all like? I know they're homeschooled. Were they all homeschooled?
All homeschooled. Yes.
Okay. Our kids were homeschooled to high school.
Okay.
But our youngest, our fourth one, you'll probably meet him a little bit.
Awesome.
He's homeschooled. I mean, he's been home, never been in public school. And so in Louisiana, I think it's a different story, especially because our public schools aren't the greatest, I don't think. But what is your philosophy on just raising kids and in a nutshell?
Yeah. We wanted our kids to love each other and think home was a great place.
Yeah.
I remember teaching Sunday school when we were first married, and some of the kids would bag on their siblings, and I just found that so unappealing.
Yeah.
And I remember, obviously, train up a child in the way they should go, and they're apart from it. Hear Israel, the Lord has got one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. These commandments I've given you today. You are to impress upon your children the Shema, right? That's my job, not the church's job. So we wanted to do that. Homeschool gives us a great place to do that. And I wanted them to love one another and have a home base that they loved. And I knew that it was my job to train the children in the Lord, not the church's job.
Right.
And equally so, it's my job to make sure the children had a well-rounded education. And we have all these benefits of modernity. We stand on the shoulders of the people before us, which is incredible knowledge. Now we have this new device that y'all talked about in your last episode with all this knowledge. It's the first generation that doesn't require adults to get knowledge that is good and bad. And we just wanted them to have a great opportunity to enjoy their life. I don't know about you guys. I did 0 homework until high school. I love that plan.
Yeah.
Sending kids home with all this stuff.
Oh,
It's
God, I hate
really
it.
a bureaucratic morass.
Yes.
And I believe it's very harmful.
Yeah.
In my 2 cents worth. And I would put a high school kid from a normal town in the 50s against college grads from good schools. I mean, they're not teaching them. I wouldn't send my kids to an Ivy League school if you paid me $1 million a year, kid.
Yeah.
I don't think that they are doing anything good. Now, and that's a shame because there's many good things that could be out of there, but this kind of ideological ramrodding is no bueno.
Maybe back in the 1800s you would, but not nowadays.
Or the 30s probably I would.
Yeah.
I don't know about today, but that our kids are they're all adults now, and they all graduated. No B's among them. They didn't make 1 B in college, and
Oh, wow.
but the youngest ones kind of went to school during the COVID years, and that was really a bummer.
Yeah.
Not being able to go to school at university and meet people as freely. That was not as good.
Yeah.
Wow.
But,
There was a psychological toll that was taken by the young people in that.
I'm never locking down again. You can just
Never.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Even during COVID, just my business or car washes, we never shut down. We're like, y'all want to arrest us, that's fine. We're not.
Yeah.
And I know it's probably different for a restaurant, but we were like, we shut our vacuums down, but we're staying open.
Man, I'm never locked down again.com is another.
you better get it.
Never.
Awesome.
This has been good.
Well, cool. Man, we're definitely going to have you back because
I love
you are a wealth of knowledge, and just there's so many things we could talk about. We do have the famous 7.
Yeah, we got a tradition.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love traditions.
So no prepreparation, top of your head. You have seconds. We like to do,
Yes.
get people to know you a little bit better. Plus, it's just fun.
Yeah.
So,
I'm digging it.
so are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
He's
Number
ready.
one, what's your favorite movie of all time? What's the movie you like?
Return of the King.
Oh, it's
yeah,
a
that's
good
good.
one.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
the
the third
third
one,
one.
right?
All right,
Yeah,
the third one. Besides Jesus here, we always know he's number one. But 3 people, living or dead, you'd like to have lunch with.
George Washington, Louis Giglio,
Hmm?
Donald Trump.
Man, all right.
Nobody's ever said Trump.
Pastor Marty,
Yeah,
who we
said-
did this morning,
said
said George
Washington.
Washington. Yeah, he said George
Washington is so incredible. 7 years of that war, and he had so many times, so many great, valid reasons to be discouraged and quit,
Yeah.
and he did not.
He did.
What a profile in determination. It's unbelievable.
Marty loved George Washington. Number 3 book, besides the Bible, book that impacted your life the most.
Gosh, now that's hard.
Of course, I guess it had to be the Constitution. You
That's
carry it
not-
in your
that's
back
not-
pocket.
That's not a book.
Well, it's a book. It
It's
looks
in
like
a book, but it's
it
not
looks
a
like
book.
a book to me.
And,
It's
oh my
not a book.
gosh, book that impacted me the most. Gosh, I don't know. Well, I'll tell you one that's impacting me right now. I gave you guys a copy today called Last Stands, Why Men Fight When All Is Lost
Yeah.
by a guy named Michael Walsh. It's really a great primer for Western civilization. He leads out using Leonidas' stand at Thermopylae as the pivotal moment where the West was born. In the East, you have controlling king and minions to make him look great.
Mhm.
In the West, you had independent people fighting for their wives and children and their beloved on each side. And so I think
Spartans, yeah.
the Spartans and all of the growth of the West. And that anyway,
That's awesome.
I wouldn't say my favorite book, but it's certainly
It's up there.
one that's in my heart right
Yeah.
at the moment.
Oh, and that's where democracy was bred out of, was the
Yeah,
Greeks.
yeah,
They,
yeah.
First date with your wife. First date.
I asked her out, and she told me she'd already eaten. And so originally I was discouraged. And because I would have certainly gone to eat again. Like, pretty girl asked you out, like,
Oh,
yeah, man.
Free food?
I just ate 7 pounds of ribs. I don't care. And she said, well, I'll go out tomorrow. So I cooked chicken fajitas, which I'd never made before, at my apartment. And there was another mutual friend who was there as well. So she wasn't coming to some stranger's house alone. But that was it. Fajitas at the house. Be bold, man.
I like that.
Favorite decade for music?
80s, baby. Come on.
You were in the 80s. All right. Of course, 70s. Of course, 70s is the correct answer, but we'll let you go with the 80s.
80s, 70s are good.
70s are good.
2 more. Favorite quote? You got a quote that you just love?
Gosh. Well, the one that came to mind, it's not my favorite, but it is a good one, from How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said,
Great book.
any good that I can do or any kindness that I can show to any person, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. I think I left out a sentence, but that's the essence.
You had enough of it.
I wouldn't call that a favorite, but that's the one that came
really
to mind.
good. Yeah,
Growing up, your favorite athlete or entertainer, who did you really idolize? Who was the hero?
Oh my gosh. Well, can I do one?
Do what you want.
Let's do Drew Brees. I did. So for 8 years, I cooked ribs every time the Saints played and I was at home. So if I was traveling, I didn't necessarily do it. And I did it because I liked Drew. I thought his character stood up.
Great guy.
And he was, plus we won. That's always handy. And so that, I would say he's my favorite athlete.
Great.
Awesome. Paul, it was a pleasure, man.
Brothers, so great to be with you, man.
I know it took a while to get you over here, but we got it done.
That's it. That's
we got it done. Awesome. Well, man. So where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you?
Freedomisbetter.com.
Okay.
Also Paul's Ribshack Barbecue, or you can just use paulsribshack.com.
Yep.
If you want to spell barbecue, it's the proper way, BARBECUE, the Texas way. So
the Texas
Paul's
way.
Ribshack Barbecue.
All right.
I am the @Bishop of Barbecue on Insta and Twitter,
Instagram?
and @Freedom Dealer on X. My new favorite platform, because that's the only place to get news right now. Like
that's right.
Or maybe one of y'all said that.
That Philip loves X.
Yeah, but
I'm hardly ever on social media, so I get it through my wife through X.
Yes.
X. So
and
it
I
comes
don't
to
watch
her.
network news.
I don't either. In fact, you can even go to a website of your favorite news network, and they're an hour behind you. You just go on X.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, we'll put all those
Absolutely.
in the description so people can get a hold of you.
Yeah, for sure. Eat some barbecue, man. Wednesday through Saturday, 4 days of barbecue.
Oh,
Love
yeah.
it.
That's the place. Definitely. And we got to do something together, man. The car
I'm down
wash and the
with it.
barbecue plate. Man, let's do
For
something.
sure. It's done. We've just committed to it.
Let's just do it. Awesome. All right, man. Well,
Thank
hey,
you guys for hosting this podcast. I love that you're doing it, that your Jesusing is right out front, and plus you're both men of achievement and love, so I just applaud you for it. Keep it up.
Thank you, brother.
well,
Appreciate
thank you,
that.
man. Hey, I got a word for you. Is that okay?
For sure.
Yeah. So I just want to let you know that God wants you to know that all the seed you've sown and all the wells that you've dug, He is getting ready to bring you a harvest, and He's going to fill those wells. And God says that your best days are ahead, and He's got a lot of things in store for you, a lot of good things. So don't get discouraged and don't be downtrodden. God says He is getting ready to open up the windows of heaven. He's going to pour a blessing out on you that there's not room enough to receive it. So that's from God. That's not me.
Amen.
Amen.
Go Jesus.
All
Go
right.
Jesus.
Well, we'll end on that note, man. God bless you.
God bless
All
you.
right. We'll check you on the next one.
Follow our podcast for more great episodes and check us out on Instagram at @lifein_action. Thank you for listening and live your life in action.